Hello everyone, my name is Chad Dillard and today I'm going to show you some of our ground classification tools that will help you classify your LiDAR point clouds. I'm also going to show some other classification tools such as building classification and bridge classification. So let's get started. So I'm going to open up one of my existing projects. And we're going to start out with a point cloud, a raw point cloud that has had no classification done whatsoever. And so we usually start with the automatic ground classification using our adaptive 10 algorithm. This algorithm is going to separate the ground points from the non-ground points and move them into the ground classification. So we do this using elevation and then a return combination. So we're going to look at the last returns, which are the most likely to be ground. So this step's going to classify the vast majority of our ground points, if not all of the ground points. Let's go ahead and run the adaptive 10 ground filter. Okay, so that process took about 4 minutes to complete. That time is going to vary depending on uh, project size. This project's around 15,000 acres, but it'll vary from based on project size, point density, and then the processing power of the machine that you're using. So now that we've got that step completed, I'm going to show a couple of tools that we have for classifying points manually. So we have three basic classes of tools. We have fully automatic, semi-automatic, and then some that are fully manual. So we're going to show off some of those tools. So the first step we'll look at is how to classify using the profile window. And that's this window here. So let's go take a look at this first area. So you'll notice this circular pattern in the ground classification, and this is caused by low points. Let me expand my profile window, and I'll recenter the points in my profile window. I'm also going to make those points bigger to uh, help us visualize those low points. If I look closely, I can see the vast majority of the ground points here, but then I also see this one point down low here, and that's causing this void in the ground to be missed. So I'm going to show you, so we have the ability to classify points manually within the profile window. And so to do that, I just change the destination class, which is the classification that I want to move the points into. So I'll choose low point, and I'll choose the method that I'll use to select the points. In this case, I'm going to classify everything below a line. I'll draw a line so that it selects those points, press the space bar, and now those points are moved into the low point classification. All right, and so now I'll just run the ground filter again over that area to clean up that void. And now it fills in the ground classification. Okay, so now let's look at the next method. So this would be a more automated way to clean up your low points in your project. And this would be the recommended way to do this since you might have multiple areas across a large project with low points, and so it's not always feasible to go through and identify them manually every time. So you would do it automatically for the whole project. Now I'm going to use this tool on a localized area on this one point to show you how it works. I'll choose the low point task and watch this orange. So this point is orange because it's in the ground classification. Once I run this tool, it's going to move that into the low point classification. So now that's moved into the low points. Run the ground filter one more time to fill in that void. Okay, let's look at a third method of classification. So this is automatic classification, but I use a more aggressive setting. And so what I'll do is I'll run this just on a small localized area. And so what we have here is an elevated mass of ground. And so the ground classification has missed this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a polygon around it, have it run the ground classification routine on this small area with more aggressive settings. And now it fills in that ground classification. That was ground again. I ran the wrong one. I'll run so let's undo that. So we do have the ability to undo classifications. I'll just undo that classification, and now we'll run the correct task, the one I intended to run, the 5 meter seed grid task. And so now we filled in the void, the missing points, and added those to the ground. Okay, so now let's look at the ground cleanup tool. This is a semi automated task where I'm going to outline the area and then I'm going to manually place the seed points rather than having the software do this automatically for me. Gives me more control over the task. I'm going to choose the ground cleanup tool, draw a polygon around the area that was missed, and I'll go through and place a few manual points. I can do that in the map view. And I can also do this in the profile as well. I'll place some along the embankment here. And I'll run the task and fill in that void. Okay, so those are the main methods of classifying your ground and cleaning up some of the areas that you often see in the ground classification. So next, I'll go through and auto classify this bridge. So notice in the point cloud, I can see the profile of the bridge. I can see the ground beneath it. I'm going to uh, run the auto classify bridge task. It will move that bridge deck into the bridge classification. Now I can see it's classified the points that are on the bridge deck. Next, we'll do building classification. This is done, after classifying the ground. Normally, I would run this on the entire project. For the demonstration, I'm going to only do it on the small area. And it'll automatically move those building rooftops into the ground classification. We move those into the building classification. And then typically for buildings, what you would do is you would have, we have a tool that will trace out these point groups and square it so that you have a building outline to create a vector layer for each of those buildings. And the final tool that I'm going to demonstrate is the classify within a polygon. So you often see this for water bodies. So just so you can see, I've got a water body there. I've got an existing vector layer, and I've also have points on the surface of that water that are classified into the ground. So I'm going to move those into the water body class by using my classify within a polygon feature. And I'm going to run this on the water body layer. And it moves all those points into the water classification. So then once I only display the ground points, and I force that vector layer, that water body layer as a break line, you'll notice the tin surface. It's mostly flat, but there's a little bit of undulation in the elevation there. I'll force that as a break line, and it flattens that water body. So now I have a hydro flattened water body, and then when I export an elevation model, I'll have a perfectly flat surface for that water body. All right, well, that's all the tools that I wanted to show you today. Thanks everybody for watching. My name is Chad Dillard. If you have any questions or are interested in seeing more of the software, please feel free to reach out to us on our webpage, lp360.com. We have a sales contact form that will send me an email and I'll know to follow up with you. All right, thanks again for watching.